If you can tell me in the chat. Alors, Neo, Zaru, there is another live in French in 2 hours. Okay, so let's start. So, I hope that the connection will be better than last time. Apologize if it's not the case. I cannot do more, unfortunately. So the point of the live today is to present you a proposal. So proposal means that it's not definitive. The design of the token economics are somehow definitive. There is still 2 things that we need to decide on. It's the multi-chain thing. So for now, we will focus on Polygon, but then when we deploy everywhere, the V2, I speak about the V2. We will need to see to work on something related to cross-chain, and then the other things. There is something else in the calculation that I will explain you after, and then you have all the parameters that will be decided by votes by the governance. So all the numbers that I will give tonight are not final, because at the end of the day, the GRT holder will vote on all the different numbers that I will use for tonight. So tonight is the numbers I'm using are just for the sake of example. Okay, so then let's start. So first, let's give a very quick overview of Syntherium V1. So the way it works, but it's really a high overview. So first, for Syntherium V1 to work, you need Liquidity Provider. When I mean Liquidity Provider, to be accurate, I don't mean the Liquidity Provider on Uniswap. Uniswap and all the AMM, we will call them in today's presentation secondary markets. When I refer to Liquidity Provider, I mean the one of the protocol that I often refer as to primary market. So in order for Syntherium to work, you need a liquidity provider who has to deposit money in a pool. Let's take the example of 10,000 USDC. After the liquidity provider has deposited the USDC in the pool, he's choosing a leverage. For example, a leverage of 10. What does it mean for us, a leverage of 10? It means that it allows the minting of 10 times the deposit. So 10,000 USDC and 10 times leverage, it allows the pool to mint $100,000 worth of JFiat. So of course, the more the liquidity provider deposits, or the higher the leverage, and the more JFiat we can mint. So here you can see there is, of course, a relationship with the scalability of the protocol. For the leverage, of course, it also creates additional risk. The higher the leverage, the higher the liquidation risk. So why? Let's take the example of Bob. Bob wants to buy $10,000 worth of JEuro. So he's sending to the pool 10,000 USDC. The pool will add, if it's a pool with a leverage of 10, the pool will add 1,000 USDC because it's 10,000 sent by Bob divided by 10, the leverage, so 1,000 USDC. Then the pool will take the 10,000 USDC of Bob plus the 1,000 USDC, and the pool will send those USDC to the collateral contract. The collateral contract then will mint $10,000 worth of JEuro, and those $10,000 are over collateralized by 11,000 USDC, which are the 10K plus the 1K that we have here. So if we were to use a lower leverage, for example, a leverage of, let's say 1, just for the sake of example, the pool will need to add 10,000 USDC because 10K divided by 1 equals 10K. And the collateral ratio will be 200%. So we see that the higher the leverage, the less the pool needs to add to collateralize the contract, but also the lower the collateral ratio. And if the price of euro dollar goes up by 8%, the collateral ratio will be 102%. At this threshold, the liquidity provider can be liquidated. And liquidation works exactly the same way as on Aave, Compound, or any protocol like Maker issuing a synthetic stablecoin. So, of course, if the leverage is at 1, the collateral ratio will be at 200%. So, again, the liquidation will happen at 102%, but you will need a movement of 98% for euro dollar to go up before liquidation happen. 98% on euro dollar, it's, I mean, if it happens, it means that crypto will be your least problem, right? Most likely the end of the world. Okay, so this is some basic information. So the problem, as I said, is that Syntherium V1 is not scalable because the way we did the protocol, it was honestly just for, let's say, finding, it was a proof of concept and also to find the product market fit. So first, there was only one pool per JFiat and only one liquidity provider per pool. And because we could only be one liquidity provider, it made more sense to ask Jarvis, the company, Jarvis Ltd, to provide the liquidity. So we have provided, I think, between 1 and 1.3 million USDC for collateralizing, I mean, for making JFiat and Syntherium works. But if we had way more money, maybe we won't need that much V2, even though we need it. But what I mean is that the V2 started to be very important because many people, projects, companies, and so on would like to use what we do. We would like to have bigger pool on Curve, but we are always limited by the amount of JFiat that we can mint because we are limited in the amount of USDC we can deposit. In Syntherium V1, the liquidity provider is earning two kinds of yield. The first one is trading fee. So every time there is a mint or every time there is a burn, basically there is 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.3% of fee. This depends on few parameters of each JFiat. It depends on their volatility and the way Chainlink updates the price. If Chainlink updates the price very frequently, the minting fees are low. If Chainlink updates the price not very frequently, then the minting fees are higher. Regardless, since October, it has generated around 18, so let's say 20% of APR just for the fee. Annualized, it is 27%. So this is pretty cool because if we keep this kind of ratio between daily volume and liquidity provision, we could target a pretty nice APR. But Syntherium V1 LP had a leverage of 10, which is high risk leverage. And this is why we won 27% basically of yearly fee. If the leverage was twice smaller, the APR will be, of course, twice smaller as well. Okay, so the higher the leverage, of course, the higher the return, but the higher the risk. And market making. Our market making, I won't go into detail because it's complicated, but basically the liquidity provider is always short. So on euro dollar, the liquidity provider is short euro USD. It was very good this year and last year because euro dollar has constantly went down. But if euro dollar is making a range or if it's going up, then the liquidity provider lose money. So the point of market making is either you automate the hedging, so you try to be as much neutral as possible, so you don't speculate on the market, you just hedge. So if if you sell J euro to someone, you buy euro somewhere else, or you can of course decide to speculate against the market. So if the market goes down, you do nothing. If the market starts going up, then you hedge. What this $1.3 million of liquidity and what Syntherium V1 enabled So far to date, since last October, we processed $350,000 of on-chain payments. So this is different from the payment used to pay salaries in euros with Mon Pèlerin. It's payment using Request Network and Superfleet. We somehow kept around $10 million of TVL. We processed $75 million of transfer. A transfer is when one address sends JFiat to another address. Cumulative holders, 18,000 addresses. Currently, there is 2,000 holders of JFiat without counting the people who are earning yield that we count as one holder. So if there is 500 people on curve, then for us, it's just one person. $180 million of swaps on the primary market, so minting and burning. I only speak, I didn't mention it, about Polygon. I don't count BNB chain. 10,000 unique addresses has done a swap on the primary market. They have done 56,000 swaps, and we have facilitated $20 million of fiat crypto on and off ramp, always with 0 fee. In terms of integration, we are integrated in Request and Superfleet. This is to perform on-chain payments. It is a solution used by Morpho, Realty, OnDeFi, and many different freelancers. So this is pretty cool. MetaShop, it's an e-commerce project which allows to purchase many things with JEuro. Mon Pèlerin, which is our fiat on and off ramp partner, and third-party payment partner, which means that as a company, if you register your company within Mon Pèlerin, you can process payment in fiat using crypto. So you can pay salary in euros using JEuro. You can pay your rent in Swiss franc using Swiss franc, and so on and so on. So on. Paraswap aggregates the liquidity. So the point of Paraswap for us is, as you all know, JFiat, you can convert them for USDC or BUSD without price impact. So if you want to buy Bitcoin or Ether with JEuro, Paraswap will basically first burn the JEuro to redeem the USDC and then swap the USDC among different venues in order to get the best price. AAV and market for money market, where you can borrow and lend JFiat, Bifi and Harvest for the auto-compounding yield, DeFi baskets to ease the creation of portfolio and the earning of yield. So for example, in just one transaction, you can create a diversified portfolio with using JEuro, or you can earn a yield on Harvest again with just one transaction. They do everything from depositing in Curve, staking in Harvest, and so on. And Minerva and Verso are the two wallets which integrated us. There are many integrations in the pipeline that are currently being, working on building currently. Some of them are very cool. So fortunately, I couldn't speak about them today. But yeah, so this is basically what we achieved to do with Synthereum V1 with a very limited liquidity, with a GRT, which with very low market cap. So we couldn't do a crazy yield farming to attract more capital and so on and so on. Okay, now just check if there is some questions. No, so let's keep going. So what about Synthereum V2? Well, the point is, of course, to address the issue of Synthereum V1, which was the scaling. But not only, I just mentioned that we had low market cap and not utility for GRT. So spending GRT for yield farming, since the GRT doesn't have a utility, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the point of Synthereum V2 is it's like a rebirth of Jarvis, a new token, a protocol which is better, and to be equipped for scaling and to transform our product market fit that we have done until now into something very big that could be used by millions of people. Okay, so again, I won't go into the detail of the protocol. There will be at some point article this summer to explain in depth the protocol. But the two biggest difference are multiple pools and the collateral which earns yield. So multiple pools, it means that as I said before, on the V1, one JFiat is linked to only one pool. So, and one pool can only welcome one Liquidity Spider. So now one JFiat can be connected to multiple pools. Unfortunately, blockchain is the best and the worst technology. Anything that you do, even on a layer 2 or on a sidechain or any layer 1 with very cheap fees, you will always have one issue. It's that you can't make too many transactions in the same in one block, or you sometimes for example, if you have 1,000 different liquidity 1,000 different pools on Synthereum V2, there will be multiple transactions every time there will be a mint or redeem, and at some point we can actually overpass the block limit. So this is why there is two kinds of pools. You have the private pools and the public pools. Private pools are permissioned. It's not permissionless. It's permissioned pool. So basically, if you are a whale, if you are a crypto fund, if you are a DAO, if you are whatever, but you want your own pool, you don't want your money to be mixed with other people, you want to have full control and so on and so on, you can candidate and the DAO will review your application and will white label your address, and you will be able to deploy a pool and seed it. Of course, it won't be for someone who wants to deposit 1 or 10,000 or even 100,000 USDC. It has to be someone who will commit way more. And the idea of separating each pool, it's also to prepare for the future. If at some point there is a fund who wants to respect their compliance restrictions and they don't want their money to be mixed with other people's money, if they want that in their own pool, they only accept whitelisted users to interact with them, then they will be able to do it. So this is why also we separate those pools. So for example, us as a company, we will candidate to have our pool. The DAO of Jarvis can have their own pool. And we already have spoken with some crypto funds and projects who would like to have also their own pool. Then you have the public pools. So public pools, it's and something to mention, each pool, of course, decides for their own leverage. Public pools are pools that can be joined by anyone, so they are permissionless. And there will be many different public pools. There is a public pools with a leverage of 10, one with a leverage of 3, and so on and so on. So you can join this pool according to the risk that you are okay to take. So again, the higher the leverage, the bigger the risk. So public pools are basically a bit like an AMM. You deposit USDC, you receive an LP token, and a bit like Compound, the LP token grows in value with the fees generated and the yield. And then you can redeem by burning the LP token to get back your USDC. Then there will be, we will roll up Synthereum V2 in multiple versions. So first we will launch the private pool, then the public pool, then the protocol pool, then the custom pool. So protocol pool is a pool owned by the protocol. So it's the famous protocol-owned liquidity. And you will be able, the protocol will be able to basically sell Jarvis or whatever, or accumulate yield to seed the protocol pool, but also people will be able to do loans to the protocol. So for example, you can loan 10 or 100,000 USD to the protocol, and the protocol is supposed to give it back to you with interest after a certain period. And then we will work on custom pool. This will be way later this year, maybe even next year. So custom pool are pool with very complex logic. So for example, it could be actually an AMM. For example, it could be a pool with USDC and DAI, and a bit like the GLP of GMX. People will be able to do zero slippage swaps in those pools, and so the liquid trader can earn trading fees on the swaps and plus trading fees on the minting and so on and so on. But it can also be with any kind actually of custom logic. So this will be like the last stage of Synthereum V2 for the multiple pools. So we see that all those pools will allow us to attract more capital and to be able, of course, to scale. To attract more capital, the trading fees alone won't be enough, even though, as you can see, it could be quite interesting. I mean, especially considering the yield that we can have now on our stablecoin. But this is why now all the USDC of the protocol will be lent on Aave V3. So the collateral will earn yield. So this is V2. So on Ethereum V2, Liquidity Provider will earn the minting and the trading fees, the market making like the V1, and yield on collateral. Alors, just a small example on how the yield on collateral works. Let's say that you are a liquidity provider who deposits 10,000 USDC and you choose a leverage of 5, which means that the maximum amount of JFiat that you allow to mint will be $50,000 of JFiat. Let's say that your pool is utilized at 75%. It means that 7,500 USDC are used to collateralize $37,500 of JFiat, and 2,500 USDC are not used because there is still place to mint JFiat. So what will be the collateral behind those JFiat? So it will be the 7,500 USDC euros plus 37,500 USDC brought by users. So altogether, there will be 45,000 USDC as collateral. So then those 45,000 USDC will be deposited into Aave. Right now, Aave on Polygon pays 1.5% per year on USDC. So the 45,000 USDC will generate 675 USDC per year. Compared to the 10,000 USDC invested, this translates into a 6.75% APR. Then you also have the capital, which has not been used, the 2,500 USDC. They are also earning 1.5%. But here, I mean, it's 1%, so you will win 37.5 USDC, which translates to 0.37%. So altogether, you could target 7.1% of APR on your USDC deposited into Jarvis, which is 4.75 times Aave. So of course, we all want the rate on Aave to grow, or at some point, maybe you have seen Morpho that has launched yesterday. It would be cool if they deploy on other chain and on the top of Aave, for example, to use their solution to increase a bit the interest. So that's all. This is how the yield on the collateral works. So still no question. So now let's speak about the token, because at the end of the day, this is the point of the live. I just wanted to explain you what we did so far, how the V1 works, how the V2 works, and how the yield on the collateral works as well. So now that you have understood this, let's move to Jarvis. So remember, all the numbers are just here for example. They will be subject to a vote. So we propose to migrate the GRT to Jarvis and to only have 42 million Jarvis tokens. So it will be a downsizing. It's purely marketing. Don't look for a reason why 42, why more or less token. We can make more token. For example, we could move the Jarvis the supply from 500 million to let's say 100 billions, which means that the price of the token will be super cheap. And there is a theory which says that when the price of a token is ultra cheap, it attracts all the moon boy and gambler. But I think it doesn't give seriousness to a project. I prefer smaller supply. 42 is a number which is quite known in the geek culture. So why not 42 million? We will adopt the VE model, not very surprising, but you will be able to mint VE Jarvis either using a balancer pool 80-20, Jarvis ETH, but it could be also Jarvis Bitcoin, Jarvis Matic, whatever. Again, the governance will decide. Or it could be also multiple different one, Jarvis ETH and Jarvis Bitcoin and so on. Or you can also lock directly the Jarvis token. Of course, the people who will lock Jarvis ETH will have more VE Jarvis than the people locking just Jarvis, which makes sense because they help the liquidity to increase and they take a bit more risks. So what VE Jarvis will provide? So we will go over all of them: LP boost, gauge voting power, slashing rewards, and gamification. Let's start with the LP boosts. So as I said before, now all the collateral will be deposited into AAV, but it will be split into two. Again, all the numbers can change. 10% will go directly to VE Jarvis holder. So of course, the longer you lock your Jarvis token and the more VE Jarvis you have. I didn't specify this before because I assume that everybody is familiar with the VE model, but maybe some of you are not. So the idea of the VE model is that you lock Jarvis token and you decide a period of lock from a few weeks to a few years. And the longer you lock and the more VE Jarvis you get. So this is to reward people who are very long-term, committed on the long-term on Jarvis. This will also help because, as you know, we have a lot of token that belongs to the earliest investor in Jarvis. And until now, there was no way for them to prove their commitment. So many people are actually afraid of buying GRT because they see that all the early investors could dump on them. It's something that I have heard and read many times. And the only way to prove them wrong, that early adopters are actually here for long term and they are not necessarily interested into selling now, will be to lock their token on chain into the VE model. So again, 10% of the collateral yield goes to VE Jarvis holder. And also 10% of the minting fees. I didn't specify it on the slides. Then 90% will go to the liquidity provider. So this is the first modification that we are bringing to the VE model. Usually in the VE model, liquidity provider, they can have a boost on their yield or no boost, but the boost always comes from inflation. So for example, on Curve, they print new CRV every day and they give it to liquidity provider. In our case, there is no reward with the inflation. So how does it work? 90% of the yield on AAV goes to the liquidity provider. But if the liquidity provider does not have VE Jarvis, they do not have a boost. So they will earn 40% of the 90% of the yield on AAV. If liquidity provider hold VE Jarvis, then they can earn up to the maximum boost, so the over 60%. Interesting thing to specify, if a liquidity provider do not have VE Jarvis and they don't want to own VE Jarvis for their own reasons, they could go to see VE Jarvis holder and tell them, look, you are not a liquidity provider, so you don't use your boost. You have unused boost, can you give it to me? So they will borrow the boost of VE Jarvis holder. And this is one way for VE Jarvis holder to generate additional yield. So they will generate yield based on the yield on AAV, the trading fees, and the boost that can be borrowed directly from a liquid provider. One more difference also with the Curve model, the 60% here are actually used to buy back Jarvis in the 80-20 balancer pool. And the Jarvis that have been bought are distributed as a reward to the liquidity provider. So liquidity provider, they actually will receive Jarvis, but not from the inflation, only from buying back from the balancer pool. So this will allow the balancer pool to generate more fees for the one who will lock their Jarvis ETH within it to mint the Jarvis token. And it's also interesting to give Jarvis to the liquid trader, because if they dump them, it's okay somehow because we bought them before. So it's in some case scenario, it's some kind of it annulates the effect of the dump. It doesn't really work like that, but I make it very simple. But also Liquidity Provider, they can say, okay, I received Jarvis. Maybe now I can log them into VE Jarvis. Like that, I won't need to borrow from VE Jarvis holder. The other things that, one of the things that the DAO will need to decide is, let's say that none of the liquidity provider is using a boost and they don't borrow the boosting power, which means that there's still 60% of the interests that are not being distributed. So it doesn't matter, the 60% will constantly be used to buy back Jarvis from the market. So it will just increase the reward pool, which means that liquidity provider who receives the boost, not only they earn 60% of on their own yield, but also they could earn the other yield which is not being distributed. So this is very hard to put it on the slide, so I didn't put it. But again, or the DAO could keep it also. The DAO can just buy back the Jarvis and keep it for them. Again, the DAO will decide what to do with it. Some numbers, for example. So let's take the same example as before. Let's imagine that there is just one liquidity provider who deposits 10,000 USDC. The pool is utilized at 75%, and so on and so on and so on. So, like before, the yield on the unused liquidity doesn't change. What changed though is the yield on the used liquidity, because now 10%, sorry, will go to VE Jarvis holder. So for the one who wants to make some simulation on Excel, here you can see what could be the yield according to the price of Jarvis token. If we have 10,000 USDC of TVL, if we have 10 million, 100 million, this kind of thing. The 90% will go to the liquidity provider. 243 will go to the liquidity, all the liquidity provider without the boost. So it will be 2.43% APR. And the 364 USDC, either they will go to the LP with a boost, or as I said before, they will be kept by the DAO. I mean, again, this we have to decide. So finally, it will create an APR of 6.45% for the liquidity provider. And I put in yellow what VE Jarvis holder can earn, because let's say that you are a liquidity provider with 0 boosts, you can borrow the boost. And in this specific situation, you know that your maximum boost will make you win 364 USDC. So you can deal with VE Jarvis holder and say, okay, I will win 364 if I borrow your boosting power. I will give you, I don't know, 30%. So let's say 120 USDC, which means that the revenue for VE Jarvis holder will be 67.5 plus 120 USDC. It is my personal goal to outsource this. You may know a project called Paladin. I would love if they can come on Polygon and if they can manage all of this. They already have the code for it. They are doing it for Curve. There is also the liquid locker of StakeDAO, and there are many different possibilities. I would like to avoid putting the renting of boost in the protocol just because it will require more work and more time. And why doing it when other protocol can do it? And if we do it with our protocol also, you can always increase the yields with their own token and so on and so on. I'm just checking if there is a question for the boosts. Okay, no question yet. Okay, now Gauge. Well, this, I don't think I need to expand a lot on it because you should be very familiar with the Gauge system. So each pool on secondary markets, but not only, here I only put pool, but I could also add AAV, for example, and we can, I mean, the DAO could say, okay, the people who will deposit JEuro or borrow JEuro on AAV will earn additional yield or this kind of thing. But for the sake of simplicity, I only put the pool that we have on Curve. So there will be multiple €2 pool, multiple 2 NZD. I mean, if there is 10 different NZD stablecoin, there will be 10 different 2 NZD pool. So we create all those pools in Curve or Ellipsis or whatever. VE Jarvis holder every week or every 2 weeks or every month, again, this has to be decided by the DAO, will vote with their voting power. So for example, they will distribute their votes among all the gauge pool that exists. And let's say that the first pool with par win 50% of the vote. The 2AJ Euro will have 10%, 10% for Euro E, 10% for BRL, and 20% for NZD. So then every week, there will be the weekly inflation. So those are Jarvis newly, freshly minted. And they will be distributed to the liquidity provider of those pools. So 50% of the inflation will go to the 2 Euro pool with par, 20% to the NZD, and so on and so on. Then the things that we do differently, it's again to reward long-term liquidity provider and also long-term Jarvis holder. So the way it works, it's that liquidity provider can decide to receive their yield right now. If they decide to receive it right now, they will only receive 50% of it. The other 50% will be sent to VE Jarvis holders. So if liquidity providers are mainly mercenaries or they just want to earn their yield for now because, I don't know, market is going down and they really want to secure money, they will just earn half of it and VE Jarvis holder will increase their amount of Jarvis token. Or they can wait 90 days and they will receive 100% of their reward. The cool thing with this is that we can play with protocol like APY. So for example, for someone who wants to earn their yield now, but they don't want to be penalized by the slashing, they could move their liquidity into APY and sell their yield upfront. So what we try to do here is basically to mix different protocols to give also more value to our protocols and so on. Then you have the bribes. So liquidity provider in the 2 Euro pool, what is their best interest? Their interest is that you vote for them. So maybe what they could do, they can decide to take their profit right now or to go on APY and to sell their yield upfront. Then they will use the proceeds to bribe the Jarvis holder to vote again for the 2 Euro per pool. This will increase the yield and so on and so on. So liquidity provider can bribe VE Jarvis holder. But also DAO, for example, Mimo has a DAO and maybe they would like the yield on the path to be bigger. So maybe they will directly bribe VE Jarvis holder. It could be also Angle. It could be also some projects. For example, TechMint, the issuer of NZDS, could see value in increasing the yield of the 2 NZD pool, and they will use their money to bribe the Jarvis holder. It is already happening, even though we don't have the Jarvis live. We have JPYC, the issuer of JPYC, who gave a $30,000 grant to the Jarvis governance. And one of the use case of the grant will be to actually bribe the Jarvis holder to vote for the 2 JPY pool on Polygon. So pretty cool because we already have a budget for bribes, at least for the 2 JPY. 2 JPY. But also the DAO of Jarvis can bribe if, for the good of Jarvis, we as a DAO, we feel that the 2 Euro pool with Euro E needs way more yield. We can put more money or GRT into the bribe system and invite people to vote for it. So this again, the bribes and the slashing is another mechanism that will help VE Jarvis holder to generate cash flow. Okay, so I will just finish with this and I will take the questions. So why Gauge are important? Why do we need secondary markets while we have our primary market that works already very good? Because we can create a lot of value. So for any non-USD stablecoin, to have a pair with us on Curve, it is actually very beneficial because it helps both the peg and the liquidity. For example, BRZ on the Binance Smart Chain, before they had a liquidity pool on PancakeSwap, and it was very expensive to maintain this pool because they constantly had to do arbitrage. And on an AMM like PancakeSwap is not very, it's not very, how to say, it's not suitable for stablecoins. When we launched the 2BRL pool, after a few weeks, they removed all the liquidity. I mean, no, it's not them, it's the market maker removed all the liquidity from PancakeSwap to put it directly on the pool. Of course, it was also to earn yield, but now, thanks to that, the BRZ has a very big liquidity. It has never been as liquid as it was before. So BRZ could be happy with the program because not only now the peg of their stablecoin is almost perfect, but also it is way, way, way more liquid than it was before. And remember why the BRZ can now be swapped with almost no slippage for GBRL. And GBRL is as liquid as BUSD, which means that now BRZ is as liquid, I mean, almost as liquid as BUSD, to a certain extent, of course. If you want to swap the equivalent of 75% of the total liquidity in the 2BRL pool, of course, you will have slippage and so on and so on. So this is why we need to increase the liquidity in this pool in order to facilitate bigger trades. Then why it is important to do those pools? It's because from a branding and marketing point of view, it puts in the head of every project and people that JFiat are the go-to stablecoin to create a pair on curve. For USD stablecoin, you have the free CRV. Every stablecoin, USD stablecoin on Ethereum, they want to launch a pool with the free CRV. And we want to become the free CRV of non-USD stablecoin. So the more gauge we have, the more liquidity, and the more project will want to do a pair with us. It is already happening. I had a call a few months ago with TechMint. They contacted us because they wanted a pool with us. They understood the way GNZD work. I had a call this week with EuroE. We spoke about the 2 euro with Mimo since almost a year. So the idea is this is really to, if tomorrow there is a new project launching, they want to work with us. And this is why it's important to have this program that, by the way, we call the peg and liquidity as a service. And then it also allows to create an on-chain Forex market. This, if you follow our Twitter, you have seen that we have done an application on the top of Curve and Jarvis, which allows to connect stable coins together. So you can exchange Euro S for NZDS or AJ Euro for MAI and so on. And it all goes through all the pools that we have done. And this is why it's very important because, as you may have seen, on-chain Forex is a very big and hot topic. And if we can build something very cool on the top of Curve, we can have, the sympathy of the Curve community and so on and so on. So this is why those programs are super important. And this is why the DAO have to make sure that we launch as many pools as possible and that they are correctly incentivized, but also that we mainly focus on the pools that brings value to us. Then for crypto-backed stablecoin or algo stablecoin, why it is important for them to create a pool with us is because it will allow them to access to the JFiat ecosystem. So as I said before, now you can buy stuff like t-shirts, but so computers, gift cards, and so on with JEuro and other JFiats. So for example, all the Euro pool, the Angle ones, the Mimo ones, the Monerium one, and so on, they also can be used to buy those things thanks to those pools. Because if you have, for example, Angle Euro and you want to buy a computer, the AJ Euro will be swapped for J Euro, and then J Euro is used for settlement. They can also access to our zero fee on and off ramp. This is the Eldorado of every crypto-backed stablecoin. They all want an on and off ramp. We can give access to our on and off ramp network, again, thanks to those pools. So this is why many projects launching stablecoin, they would like to do pool with us, and they could bribe people to increase the liquidity. And for fiat-backed stablecoin, actually, it is more Jarvis that needs them, because for some JFiat, we do not have a fiat on and off ramp, or we have one, but very expensive. And fiat-backed stablecoin are actually on and off ramp. So for example, let's take again the case of Brazil, the BRZ. We don't have an on-ramp or an off-ramp in Brazil. And if we were to have one, it would be incredibly expensive because of the way things works in Brazil for Forex. So basically, someone with BRL, so the local currency, can mint BRZ with no fee. And then the BRZ can be swapped for GJBRL, which means that BRZ becomes a proxy for Jarvis to access a bank account in Brazil. So this is why it is ultra mega important for the DAO to create and to incentivize correctly fiat-backed stablecoin. But be careful, fiat-backed stablecoin doesn't mean that rug pull can't happen. There was one a few weeks ago in Colombia with one of their fiat-backed stablecoin, and you all know all the things around USDT and so on and so on. Then another thing very important for the PLAS, it is protocol on liquidity. If I have to be honest, what I would love, it's basically to attract shit tons of liquidity. So we spend Jarvis every week in order to attract liquidity. But time to time, we propose people to sell their liquidity for Jarvis token. So we tell them, okay, look, if you are interested into buying without slippage, instead of buying Jarvis token somewhere, you can buy it from the DAO at a small discount. I mean, I think you all know the system of protocol on liquidity. And why we will do that is because it's very important if the DAO can own and lock a part of all those different pools, because the more the DAO owns liquidity and the less we need inflation. And you know, at some point, the inflation of Jarvis will stop because there won't be new token that we can print. So it is very strategic that the DAO owns a large part of the liquidity, at least the one with which is the most strategic for us. Okay, so now I check the question. Curious if you want to build this or leverage existing one, or I guess, Frenchy, you meant about the borrowing and lending. So yeah, the less I build things that already exist, the better I am. It saves time, it saves money, it saves everything, and it creates value for other projects, and we can increase the yield because we can leverage other project native token. So IVARS, this will be the DAO, but you know, as I said, we can have VE Jarvis minted with GRT USDC, GRT JEuro, GRT ETH, and so on and so on. But remember that the problem with USDC is, even though it's an 80-20 pool, you will have impermanent loss because GRT is more volatile than USDC, than Jarvis. No, it will be called Jarvis. While with ETH, there should be some kind of correlation between Jarvis and Ether if, of course, it happens. And so somehow it could be with smaller impermanent loss. But anyway, again, those were just examples. We finished with gamification. You have maybe noticed that my profile picture on Twitter is a pink helmet. So we don't intend to mint token, NFT, and to sell them to make a bit of money, even though I think it could be interesting at some point for the DAO if the DAO wants to finance, remember the protocol pool that I mentioned before. They could do this, and it will help the DAO to generate incomes. For example, you can say, okay, you mint one NFT, and in exchange, the DAO will give you 10% of what she wins forever. So you hold an NFT which can receive money. So we thought about it, but for now, the NFT are a bit different. So the idea is that when you have a VE Jarvis token, it is a non-transferable ERC20 token. You can convert it into an NFT, and we'll use the Chainlink VRF mechanism to randomize the creation of a helmet. So the background color, the hair, the message, all the messages are related. I mean, not all, but most of them are related to the crypto ecosystem. So probably nothing, delete, we're all going to make it this kind of thing. Gucci, Lambo, and so on. And for Gucci, we will of course remove it to avoid problem with the brand, but we will make it look like similar. Regardless, so you can mint an NFT. So what's the point? So the DAO can create quests. So for example, the DAO can say, hey, I think there is not enough liquidity in the €2 per pool. So the DAO can say, this month, the most important thing for us is to increase the liquidity. So for the liquidity provider, who will provide liquidity in the the €2 par pool, and who owns VE Jarvis and who has transformed their VE Jarvis into an NFT, they will earn points. So unfortunately, this will be very hard to do fully on chain. So the prototype that we built last year already, it's using Aleph, another French project, to update the information. So the idea is that you do a quest. So like example, vote at each gauche vote. It can be also to bribe, like we can say, okay, it's good if V Jarvis holder bribes whatever pool. I mean, doesn't matter. The DAO creates the quest, successful quest equal points. When you have earned 10 points, you can level up your NFT. So this will be an on-chain transaction. And every time you level up, so you go from level 0 to whatever, it actually increases the number of VE Jarvis that you have. So it means that your boosting power, your voting power, your slashing reward mechanism power, whatever, the amount of fees that you collect from the yield and from the trading fees is also increasing. So the idea is that the more people are engaged and the more people are participating within either the protocol or other things, the DAO could also say, please go to use a DeFi basket, or please go to use Paladin, or Paladin can ask or bribe the voter to create a quest about this. And again, every time a quest is done, number of points is earned, and then money. And we also will create random traits for each NFT for a potential game. So, for example, each NFT will have a strength or whatever. And I don't say we'll do a game, but since we never know, why not doing it? I mean, why not putting those parameters now? And maybe we'll see one day if us or someone else is doing it. It could be, for example, a game for fighting where one NFT fights another one, the loser loses some level, so the winner wins more VE Jarvis. I mean, you know, this kind of thing. So it can be somehow play to earn, but sustainable finally. That's it for the presentation of tonight. I hope that it was clear. Remember that this is a proposal, that we still haven't started the work on it. We actually just started this month with the team to do research on how to do everything. Reach out to a few projects to outsource, you know, the voting, borrowing, and this kind of thing. And that's pretty much so. It's not something that will be launched tomorrow. Of course, we will do the best as we can. But yeah, bear with us for the new token. Alors, is gamification in a sense similar like Element DAO? Alors, I don't know Element DAO, but I guess if they do gamification for doing stuff, then yes, it is the same. Voila, so we are done for tonight. I will take questions if there are any, and if no, I will let you. That's all. No, nothing else to say. How about expanding on two? Yeah, we didn't speak about the cross chain, so this is super complicated. So most likely, what we will do, Polygon will become our home. So the Syntherum V2, the Jarvis token, and so on will be on Polygon. But I think many people from the community, they will prefer actually the token on Polygon to be a wrap of the token on Ethereum. There is also a possibility to use Yuma to wrap the token on Polygon. I mean, to wrap the token on Polygon And like that, the wrapped token on Polygon is actually protected from anything. And those are the things I said at the beginning that still needs to be cleared out. But regardless, so for me, yeah, the home is Polygon, and the V2 will be on Polygon. But then there will be some chains where we won't deploy the V2 yet. For example, on BNB, but there is no AAV. So it will be complicated to deploy it on AAV. For Moonbeam, there is no AAV neither. And when I say AAV, I mean AAV V3. So first, we are limited with this, and we really need a very battle-tested money market in order to do it. Then we need to explore also minting cross-chain using CCIP of Chainlink or layer 0. So the idea is that you lock collateral in one chain and you mint the JFiat in another chain. So like that, we can still centralize all the collateral and so on in one chain. But again, there is still a lot of challenge with that. So most likely on Moonbeam and other things, we will deploy the V1. I mean, between the V1 and the V2. For example, the version we have on BNB, it's actually it's between the V1 and the V2. So yeah. So the cool thing with the multi-LP is that it will allow Jarvis Ltd to withdraw if we attract at least 1 million USDC. Jarvis Ltd can withdraw its liquidity and add liquidity on other chains. Because right now, for example, we are on Gnosis and Avalanche. I would like to do many things on Avalanche and Gnosis, but for now we don't have the money for that. I mean, we can't put more liquidity. So to attract more liquidity on Polygon will help us to build liquidity elsewhere until we can launch the V2 there. Okay, so thank you everyone for your time and see you soon. Bye everyone.